Margaret Hayes had always believed that kindness required no audience. At 58, with silver threading through her honey-blonde hair, she'd learned this truth through decades of teaching elementary school. Now retired, she carried that gentle wisdom with her everywhere, even 30,000 feet above the ground. The flight from Chicago to San Francisco was only half full that Tuesday afternoon. Margaret had chosen a window seat in business class, a rare luxury she'd allowed herself. She was traveling to visit her daughter, and something about the softness of the leather seats and the quiet hum of the cabin felt like a small celebration of this new chapter in her life. She was settling in with her book when she heard it. A baby's cry, piercing and heartbroken, came from 2 rows ahead. Margaret looked up to see a young father, perhaps in his late 30s, walking the aisle with a red-faced infant cradled against his shoulder. The man wore a tailored navy suit that spoke of boardrooms and important meetings, but his face told a different story. There was exhaustion there and something deeper, worry perhaps, or grief. The baby, a little girl of maybe 6 or 7 months, wore a sweet white dress with tiny embroidered flowers. Her dark hair was damp with tears, and her small fists clutched at her father's shirt as she wailed. Margaret watched as other passengers shifted uncomfortably, some reaching for headphones, others burying themselves deeper into their devices. The father murmured soft words Margaret couldn't hear, bouncing gently, trying everything. But the crying continued, growing more desperate. She remembered that sound. The inconsolable cry of a baby who was beyond tired, beyond hungry, lost in that terrible place where comfort seemed impossible to find. She'd heard it with her own children decades ago, and later with countless students' younger siblings at school events. Without overthinking it, Margaret rose from her seat. She approached slowly, not wanting to startle anyone. The father had stopped near her row, still swaying, still trying. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, and she could see the faint shadow of sleeplessness under his eyes. "Excuse me?" Margaret said softly, her voice barely above the hum of the engines. "I don't mean to intrude, but I taught young children for 35 years. Would you mind if I tried something?" The man, whose name she would later learn was David Mitchell, looked at her with a mixture of desperation and hope. "Please," he said simply. "I don't know what else to do." Margaret smiled, the kind of smile that had comforted hundreds of children over the years. She didn't reach for the baby, didn't invade their space. Instead, she simply began to sing. It was an old lullaby, one her own grandmother had sung to her. The melody was simple, the words timeless. "Hush now, little one, close your eyes. The moon is watching from the skies. The stars are dancing soft and bright, to keep you safe throughout the night." Her voice was warm and steady, not particularly beautiful, but genuine. She sang quietly, just loud enough for the baby to hear, letting the rhythm of the words create a gentle pattern in the chaos. Something remarkable happened. The baby's crying began to soften, interrupted by small hiccups and gasps. Her eyes, dark and wet with tears, found Margaret's face. Margaret kept singing, kept her gaze soft and kind, the way she used to look at frightened children on their first day of school. "The trees will whisper you to sleep, while angels guard the dreams you keep. The world can wait until the dawn. Rest now, precious little one." The crying faded to whimpers, then to silence. The baby's eyelids grew heavy, fluttering once, twice before finally closing. Her small body relaxed against her father's chest, her breathing evening out into the peaceful rhythm of sleep. David stood perfectly still, afraid to move, afraid to break the spell. Margaret finished the lullaby, humming the last few bars until she was certain the baby was truly asleep. "Thank you," David whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you," Margaret smiled again. "Babies know when love is near," she said quietly. She just needed to feel safe enough to let go. "You're doing a beautiful job." She saw something shift in his expression then. The professional mask cracked slightly, and for just a moment, she glimpsed the vulnerable man beneath. "Her name is Emma," he said softly. "And I'm trying. It's just the 2 of us for 8 months now." Margaret understood immediately. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "She's lucky to have you," she said. "And you're doing better than you think." She returned to her seat, picked up her book, and thought no more of it. That was the thing about kindness, she believed. It wasn't meant to be remembered or rewarded. It was simply meant to be given. But David remembered. Over the next 90 minutes, as Emma slept peacefully in his arms, he thought about the silver-haired woman who had sung to his daughter. He thought about genuine compassion, offered without expectation. He thought about his late wife, Caroline, who would have appreciated such simple kindness. When the plane landed, David carefully gathered Emma and his belongings. He looked for Margaret as passengers deplaned, wanting to thank her again. But she had already disappeared into the crowd. 2 weeks later, Margaret was surprised to receive a package at her daughter's home. Inside was a beautiful hardcover book, a collection of lullabies from around the world, and a handwritten note on thick, expensive stationery. "Dear Margaret," it read, "I learned your name from a kind flight attendant who remembered your kindness. I'm David Mitchell, and my daughter Emma is the little one you sang to sleep. I wanted you to know that your gentle song did more than comfort a crying baby. It reminded a struggling father that people still care for one another, that strangers can offer grace in difficult moments. Emma and I have been navigating this world without her mother since she was 2 months old. Some days feel impossible, but meeting you reminded me that kindness still exists, quietly, beautifully, without fanfare. Thank you for your song and for your heart. The world needs more people like you." Margaret sat in her daughter's kitchen, reading the note 3 times over. Her eyes filled with tears, not because of the expensive gift or the eloquent words, but because she was reminded of something she'd always believed, that small acts of love ripple outward in ways we cannot see, touching lives we may never know about. She never learned that David Mitchell was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, worth more money than she could imagine. She never needed to know, because the real gift wasn't in the book he sent or the success he'd achieved. It was in the reminder that we're all just human beings, trying our best, sometimes stumbling, always needing each other. And sometimes all we need is someone willing to sing a lullaby.